Greetings from Los Angeles. Greetings from Los Angeles County. Greetings from the West Coast. Greetings from not Tokyo, but somewhere on the other side of the world or close to it. This is Daisuke, and I very much hope that this video finds you well and in very good spirits wherever you are in the world. And as you may guess or may see based on what I have here in front of me and also what I have projected behind me, I'd like to, if it's okay with you, continue on with our discussion of Twin Peaks: The Missing Pieces in the context of this great work, which is Twin Peaks: Fire Walk with Me. As some of you may recall, over the course of a number of videos on this channel, you and I, been talking about this wonderful series, this wonderful work of art, this wonderful piece of profound entertainment that continues to ask many questions upon watch and rewatch and rewatch. And of course, I'm referring to this world, which is Twin Peaks. So over the course of a number of videos, you and we have been talking about the series, seasons 1, seasons 2, the pilot, the episodes, one at a time, and also jumping into a discussion of Twin Peaks: Fire Walk with Me. And now we are going through, or we have been traveling through each of the missing pieces together. Now, the last time we spoke about this was maybe a month or so back, but because of my recent life events of moving from one country to another, I've had to put these discussions on hold for a moment just so I could get settled in to my new house with my family after the move and the like. And so we are just now settling in, and so I thought now is as good a time as any to pick up the pieces, as it were, and restart these conversations with regard to Twin Peaks: The Missing Pieces, with regard to Twin Peaks, and indeed take these conversations to the next series or the next season, as it were, Twin Peaks: The Return, which I hope will be very soon. But before we get to those wonderful stories, we have, of course, these wonderful pieces before us, those being the missing pieces. And we have been, you and I, speaking about each of these pieces one at a time. Now, if it's okay with you, I'd like to pick up the conversation once again where we left off. And the next piece is, in fact, that which I see a shot of behind me. So let us start in earnest with this conversation, if it's okay. Before we do, let me point out that this is merely my opinion. This is just my thoughts and comments. I don't hold myself out to be in any shape or form whatsoever any type of Twin Peaks expert. I am not knowledgeable when it comes to Twin Peaks. My knowledge base is very shallow about this, and indeed many a topic. But I am coming at this as a fan. I have seen Twin Peaks, the series, many times. I have seen The Missing Pieces many times. I have seen Fire Walk with Me many times. I hold Twin Peaks: Fire Walk with Me and indeed The Missing Pieces in such high regard. This was one of the great works I've had the great fortune to be able to witness in my life, and that includes The Missing Pieces. So I hold these works in very high regard, and so I'm coming at this from that vantage point. That being said, I don't hold myself out to be an expert, so I might, and I certainly have, gotten a lot of details wrong, and I perhaps will try, I will try to not do so, but I know I will make mistakes along the way, and so for that I apologize in advance. For those who are expert, for those who have a deeper knowledge base than I, please feel free to correct me, please feel free to jump into the conversation if you like. And also just share with me your thoughts and comments about how you feel about Twin Peaks, either generally or perhaps specifically in the context of this episode or this missing piece, or perhaps overall, writ large. I'd love to hear your thoughts about that. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I'm doing this, is to have a conversation, dialogue with you, my dear friends, about this wonderful work of art, which is Twin Peaks, including the missing pieces. So that's the first thing. The second thing, too, I just want to reassure you that I will not be referring with any specificity to any story or any episode or any part that comes after this. Now, I'm doing that for the benefit of those who are watching the stories of Twin Peaks for the first time. I don't want to refer to anything that will happen after this. That includes any of the missing pieces that come after this. Anything prior to this, any missing piece prior to this, any discussion about Twin Peaks: Fire Walk with Me, any of the episodes in seasons 1 or 2 or the pilot, I think that's fair game. I might make references to anything that has occurred prior to this, but I won't make any direct reference to anything that occurs after this. So there might be some hint along the way, perhaps, but that will not have any specificity until we reach those discussions later down the road. So for those who have not yet seen or not yet finished your Twin Peaks journey, you are still in the midst of your initial Twin Peaks journey, please rest assured I won't speak about anything beyond this, but everything leading up to and including this missing piece. So without further ado, let us continue on with our discussion of Twin Peaks, the missing pieces, and let us start with this scene or this snippet or this piece right here. And this is, of course, the moment where we get the shot of Mike and Bobby in the car talking, making references to the drugs, the football, Leo, the money, $5,000. And this is very important stuff too, because it's not funny, sunny. There's references to barracudas, snakes, etc. Some type of maybe double entendre, perhaps that's going on, and then the emergence of Laura and Donna, which we understand that they're on their way to school, which is of course a direct echo to what we saw in the film Twin Peaks: Fire Walk with Me. 1 year later, the reemergence of Twin Peaks, the familiar signage, and the immediate shot of Laura Palmer walking down the street, calling out to Donna, Donna emerging from her house, the quote-unquote new Donna, and then we get a shot of the from behind as they're walking down another street. Yeah, Mike, you're the man. And then we get a shot of Mike and Bobby in the car. Mike is the man. Laura Palmer, see you later. So we do get that echo in the film, but here in the missing pieces, we get a type of extension or type of alternate take or angle of these events involving Mike and Bobby, and then later Donna and Laura Palmer. So this is really great for a number of reasons from my point of view. So first off, we have the reemergence of the details involving the football and the drugs and this whole underground network, this underground, say, drug culture that is Twin Peaks. We got a reminder of that, yes, in Twin Peaks: Fire Walk with Me. There were some scenes involving drug usage, that's for sure. But from the series really tackled head-on this idea of many people involved in this underground criminal drug enterprise network, including Leo, who is referenced here, and of course Mike and Bobby and the exchange of the drugs and the football, etc., and the money that's owed. This is all part of the sort of early aspect or the early subplots that populate the beginning episodes of Twin Peaks Season 1, and it adds to the intrigue. Well, we get a direct reminder of this, perhaps even more pronounced than the reminders that we got ever so subtly in Twin Peaks: Fire Walk with Me. So we get it full on here, which is really nice. Again, it's a reminder of the link to the series, in particular Season 1. And then we have maybe the exchange between Mike and Bobby. There is somewhat of a tension between them. Bobby is very relaxed, perhaps overly so, and Mike is somewhat concerned about the drugs or the stuff that's missing, etc., and the worry about Leo and what's owed, etc. It's not funny, sunny, etc. So, but there is that tension between the two of them. They are still friends, and it's a reminder of the buddy combination that is Mike and Bobby. But there's also a tension that emerges, which is still very important as part of their relationship, which is sort of on-off when we think about the trajectory of Mike and Bobby over the course of Twin Peaks, the Twin Peaks saga, specifically Seasons 1 and 2. But we do get a reminder of their relationship here. And then, of course, the emergence of Donna and Laura Palmer here, and they are very almost nonchalantly brushing off Mike and Bobby. We got a hint of that in the film, but we get it more head-on here. And then Mike is the man, Laura Palmer, see you later. And we also get a little bit more of the back and forth, the banter between the two, Donna and Laura, as they're walking, which is really nice, I adore Twin Peaks: Fire Walk with Me. I really do. I consider it one of the great films directed by David Lynch. Perhaps it could be my absolute favorite film directed by David Lynch. I adore this to bits, and I adore the missing pieces also to bits. And the reason why I love the missing pieces so much, or one of the reasons, is that it is also a healthy reminder of another way one can look at the world of Twin Peaks: Fire Walk with Me, or the world of Twin Peaks. Twin Peaks: Fire Walk with Me could be said to have a very dark edge to its viewing. It's very direct, and it's suddenly we realize that Laura Palmer is sort of thrust into this dark world. There is none of the, or perhaps one of the readings that could be said about the film is that maybe the moments of the innocence and the high school charm and the high school student banter, maybe that is more subdued in favor of the darker story of the final days of Laura Palmer, which I think is a very, very compelling story indeed. But what we do get in The Missing Pieces, such as this moment, is that banter, that back and forth, that innocent high school quality feel and that atmosphere that I think is also part of the charm of Twin Peaks as well, or the series, maybe even beyond. And so to have that reminder here, especially between the two of them, Donna and Laura, and then at this moment too, the music, the theme music kicks in, not before, but at this moment, at least in the context of Twin Peaks, The Missing Pieces. So this seems to me to be a very strong calling card, a very important moment figuring into the reintroduction back into the world of Twin Peaks, a la the music, and also at the moment where we get this innocent back and forth banter between the two girls. Again, we are returning to Twin Peaks in more ways than one, right? Not just through the music, not just through the environment and atmosphere and the ambiance and the trees and the sunlight and the nature and Mike and Bobby and Donna and Laura, but Donna and Laura and Mike and Bobby too, but in particular Donna and Laura as innocent students, as innocent high schoolers, which I think is part of the reason why Twin Peaks is so compelling, and also it adds to the depth of the drama and also the tragedy and also the overall charm. That mixture of these varying dynamics, I think, is what makes Twin Peaks such a compelling watch. And it is part of the fabric of Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me, but I think it's made even more pronounced in moments like The Missing Pieces here, which I think makes this such a magical moment indeed. And I should point out too, that this piece follows the previous piece, which was about Philip Jeffries and the whole thing about being zapped from one part to another, and then the hotel hallway and the bellhop, and what he says, among other things, he says, "Ayúdame," which I mentioned in that discussion. I thought to my ears, he first said, "Are you the man?" I then realized that he wasn't saying, "Are you the man?" but he was probably saying, "Ayúdame." But if one takes that bellhop's line to being, "Are you the man?" it's a very interesting juxtaposition, because the next immediate scene in The Missing Pieces is the moment where Mike is referring to, or there's this discussion of Mike is the man. Mike is the man. So again, I understand that the question is not, "Are you the man?" but it does sound like that. And so if the question is indeed, "Are you the man?" the answer to that question seems to be coming forth here, which is Mike is the man, which I think is a really interesting juxtaposition. Whether done on purpose or not, again, a lot of happenstance in the world of Twin Peaks, a lot of happy coincidences, which is a wonderful thing about Twin Peaks and David Lynch and Mark Frost, of course. But if that is one of those examples, what a great example it is. And two, if that is indeed the case, "Are you the man? Mike is the man." Then what does that mean? This is yet another example of questions and answers in Twin Peaks. We have seen so many questions posed in Twin Peaks, so many famous questions. Who killed Laura Palmer? And indeed, the answer to that question, who killed Laura Palmer, leads to answers, but those answers then lead to further questions, do they not? And those answers to those questions lead to more questions. So who killed Laura Palmer? There's another famous question, how's Annie? Right? And the answer to that question may or may not emerge, but depending on how that question might or might not be answered, that may or may not lead to further questions down the road. Let me just put it that way. And perhaps, and I'll try to be very careful here, there might be other questions down the road. Who's to say? Who's to say what lies beyond the world of Twin Peaks, beyond this missing piece? We might see something one day, but for now, let us just keep in mind the importance of questions and answers that lead to further questions. That is the very nature, one can say, of Twin Peaks, even if it's done in this almost happenstance, perhaps purely coincidental, seemingly purely coincidental way, such as the juxtaposition of these two missing pieces side by side, Ayúdame and Mike is the man. Even if it's purely coincidental, still, it is a nice, haunting, and beautiful reminder of this question and answer back and forth that is, in many ways, the heart and soul of a type of reading of Twin Peaks. So bravo for this. And this is also a return to the world of Twin Peaks and Laura Palmer, and indeed the final days of Laura Palmer, again in the context of the missing pieces. Next up, we have this missing piece. Again, the freeze frame image is right here, and we have Sarah Palmer coming home with two brown bags, paper bags filled with groceries. There's a prominent bit of milk, low-fat milk, and also Breyer's ice cream. And like it looks like there are 2 cartons of milk, maybe more, who knows. But in any event, so there's a lot of milk. I wonder if there's cream corn in those bags, I wonder. But in any event, we have Sarah Palmer returning through the front door. Notice the decor, notice the house, the architecture of the house. This was remarked upon in our discussion, I think, of Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me. And also, it's interesting to see comparisons and contrasts between how houses looked in the opening episodes of Twin Peaks, the pilot, the first episodes of the first season, etc., and how those same houses looked or look now in Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me, and indeed the missing pieces. So some houses look the same, some places look somewhat different. That also goes to the theory. One of the ways in which one can read Twin Peaks is things are the same yet not the same. They have a similar feel, yet something is somewhat different or somewhat off. And I think that could be said too about how houses are used or reused or not used again in certain contexts. We spoke a little bit about the Hayward House or the Palmer House, etc. So there are ways in which we look at the environment. Things stay the same, but they might seem a little bit different. But anyway, let's keep our eyes and ears open with respect to the decor and houses that are used. But going back to this piece, we have Sarah Palmer coming back from a day from out shopping. It's interesting to see Sarah Palmer in the context of grocery shopping. Perhaps there might be other scenes in the past, present, and maybe in the future of Sarah Palmer shopping with shopping carts or in the grocery stores. But in any event, here we have groceries. And at the same time as she's coming into the house, Laura Palmer is rushing down the stairs with the what appears to be diary in hand. So this is, of course, I think corresponding to or is meant to follow immediately after Laura Palmer in her room, and the idea too of the discovery of perhaps something or someone knowing more about the diary and this threat that this potentially has. And so we think that this means that she will now go to her next point, which we can assume will probably be a scene involving Harold Smith in the film. But before that, of course, she's rushing down, and before she's able to make her way to the next spot, she meets her mother again as she's entering the front door. And this idea too of the smoke and the cigarette, and the excuse that Laura Palmer gives about forgetting a book, which of course will emerge a little bit later in the missing pieces, and this idea too of Sarah Palmer giving her sort of sagely motherly advice about smoking. Is that right? That and I paraphrase. She'll never be a smoker if she doesn't start, and so that is a very interesting phrase that is mentioned here, because again I paraphrase that because we see, of course, Laura Palmer in a bit of panic and a bit of not knowing what to do, and so she's trying to go to the next step and see what's going on, to confide in the person, one of the only people in Twin Peaks that she can confide in, as we'll find out. But there's this back and forth between her and her mother. It's almost like a comedic physical comedy moment, and it's almost it is kind of played for laughs, I think, in a very loving way. So there's this moment between mother and daughter. Those moments, I think, are very few and far between because of the circumstances involving seasons 1 and 2, and the fact that the series opens with Laura Palmer already killed. And so these moments between mother and daughter are very precious indeed. We saw some moments between mother and daughter in Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me, but dare I say it, those were very dark, and perhaps they were clouded in the type of darkness that was Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me, the ambience of the film. And so to get a moment like this, which can be said to be a very innocent one, granted, Laura Palmer is in a type of panicked mode, that's for sure, but she stops and turns around and she helps her mom. And there's this whole thing about carrying the cigarette, forgetting she has a cigarette in her hand, and this whole exchange. It has that innocent mother-daughter quality to it, which I think is very valuable because, again, it shows the connection between Sarah and Laura, which I think is very key, crucial indeed. And again, that's one of the reasons what I think makes The Missing Pieces so magical. Also, this idea about the smoking, and that she'll never be a smoker if she doesn't start. This is a very cryptic message. It's done, I think, in a way to remind us that sometimes Sarah Palmer has a way with words, and she has a way of almost twisting things to make things meanings flip on its head. Reminds me a little bit too of Ringo Starr, and how Ringo Starr would come up with these what were referred to by John Lennon in the Beatles as malapropisms. And so A Hard Day's Night, or Tomorrow Never Knows, or can't, that sort of thing. And so or not tomorrow, it's A Hard Day's Night, etc. So maybe not Tomorrow Never Knows, I take that back. But in any event, the notion here is that there's a way in which Sarah Palmer has this way of, I think, maybe malapropisms or turning words on their head, not quite getting the meaning that one is used to. So the idea here is, Laura will never be a smoker unless she starts, which sounds to be almost like almost a negligent thing to say for a mother to say to her daughter, because it seems to be promoting smoking, if anything. However, it does remind us of a number of things. First off, no matter what one thinks of smoking, no matter if one even thinks smoking is a very reprehensible act because of the damage that it might cause to one's physical body and health, there is a way in which smoking and cigarettes is very, very important in the world of David Lynch films and Twin Peaks. There are many characters who smoke. There are many characters who have the act of cigarette smoking almost as a type of rite or ritual, almost as a type of bonding experience. And these scenes of smoking are therefore very, very contextually important. And so whenever you have a character and smoking, chances are that will be a moment of pondering or trueness to the character or some other thing that could be said to be significant, maybe on a mundane character level, or perhaps on a significant plot level, or perhaps a hybrid of the two, or something beyond that. So cigarette smoking and the image of the cigarette is very important in the world of David Lynch, and also in Mark Frost, and also Twin Peaks writ large. And this is an example here. Sarah Palmer and smoking almost go hand in hand. And also there's this way, a kind of weird cryptic way, when you think about the line, it's almost as though, and if you think of smoking as this type of corruptible or image of corruptibility, not saying that you have to, but if you do look at it that way, then one could say Sarah Palmer is almost maybe slyly or unintentionally or intentionally, whatever the case may be, maybe trying to quote unquote corrupt her daughter, end quote, into becoming a smoker, whatever that means. Now, that could be a rite of passage from the point of view of Sarah Palmer. In that case, it's a very innocent remark. But keep in mind, there is this thing, there's a type of dark music in the air, let's put it that way, about the role of Sarah Palmer in the context of the Palmer household and what it was that she may have done or did not do but should have done in order to perhaps, possibly, maybe try to prevent what ultimately happened to Laura Palmer. In other words, what is the role, if anything, of Sarah Palmer? Is Sarah Palmer completely innocent? Or perhaps was there something that we get a sense of or hint of in some aspects of Twin Peaks Fire Walk With Me, in particular the film, of maybe feigning some kind of ignorance that ultimately leads to, perhaps directly or indirectly, the death and murder of her daughter. Now, I'm not saying that she is directly complicit. I'm not saying that at all. But what I am saying is that there is room for discussion as to the complicity or lack thereof, to a great degree or even to a minute degree, of Sarah Palmer. And it's lines like this that make you think, that's not quite how one would have said it. That's not quite how I would have said it. That might just be a type of joke. It just might be a very innocent way with words. Or there might be something of a nuanced thing that could be leading to the possibility of maybe, perhaps, possibly, maybe, maybe not, possibly connecting the dots as to some realm of, say, corruptibility, whether innocent or not, or complicity, whether quote-unquote innocent or not, in the role of Sarah Palmer. Or perhaps it's just Sarah Palmer coming home with her groceries, cigarette in mouth, not quite being able to do everything at once because, again, her hands are full. So it's maybe just one of those innocent moments. Again, that's a lot of milk. So That's a lot of milk she has to carry in those two bags. So maybe it's indeed just that and nothing more. But who knows in the world of Twin Peaks, right? Who knows?